in this?
Not right now.
Well, I mean, like, in the summer?
Yeah.
In this?
Yeah. It's just really cold all year. That's not them.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life. I'm here today to film a recent and currently reading video and just give a little catch up to you on what I've been up to. This video is a little bit later than I wanted to film it. Unfortunately, last week I came down with a bad cold that's been going around my community, and I was quite sick with that, and I lost my voice, and so I really wasn't in any shape to be filming. So I sort of waited for that to resolve itself, and then there was lots of other crap going on, which I won't get into because it's boring. But here I am. I'm feeling better. I'm mostly recovered. I still sound a little congested, but it's really a lot better than it was. And so let's just talk about what books that I have read in the last little while and what I'm currently reading. First of all, I want to talk about Nonfiction November and my efforts to read mostly nonfiction last month. I did really well. I completed 12 books total. I did not complete everything on my TBR because I got a little distracted by some other nonfiction that I found throughout the month. And I am still currently reading a few books that were on my original TBR, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I think 12 books in a month for nonfiction is really great. I'm really happy with that. I'm really pleased with my progress through the month. I just absolutely love Nonfiction November, and I thank Olive and Gemma for hosting that, and looking forward to it for next year. When I got sick, I of course turned to a little bit of lighter fare, which I often do, and I had heard Kazan over at Always Doing talking about the Mercy Thompson series, the urban fantasy series, and I had a book on my TBR from that. I think this is book either 7 or 8 in that series. I can't remember what. This is Night Broken by Patricia Briggs. As I said, this is an urban fantasy series featuring our main character, Mercy Thompson. She is a shapeshifter. She is a coyote in her other form, and she solves sort of supernatural mysteries with her partner, who is the alpha male of the local werewolf pack, Adam, and he's a great character, and I really love their interactions. And in this particular book, Mercy has to deal with Adam's ex-wife, who gets into a mess and has to come back and room with them for a little bit. And that leads to, of course, lots of interesting interpersonal relationship type things. I will tell you that I absolutely love this series. You should start with book 1 and realize that this book has a lot of great character development with Mercy. She is a kick-ass heroine, but she's also vulnerable and very realistic, I think, for the fact that, you know, it's in a supernatural world. So I read Night Broken in a day when I was sick, and then I had to go right on to the next book in the series, which my library thankfully had, and that's Fire Touched. And so I read both of those in like 2 days, and that was awesome and a great sort of refresher for me, and sort of got me out of feeling like crap from being sick, and just was fun. I also completed on audio the last book in the Binti trilogy, which is Binti Night Masquerade. That's a sci-fi series, which are novellas written by Nnedi Okorafor, and they are really excellent on audio, which is how I consume them, and I would recommend them highly in that format. I can't really talk about the Night Masquerade because, of course, it's book 3, and it would spoil other things. But Binti really comes into her own as a young woman with some specific powers, I guess you could say, that she has. And it's it's just a great world based on African mythology, and sort of wraps those tropes in with a sci-fi atmosphere, and I just really love them. They're very they build an amazing picture in your mind's eye. So definitely highly recommend that on audiobook. I'm currently listening on audio to Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I had never read this particular Jane Austen before. And I wanted to read this one because it completes a prompt on my Book Riot Read Harder Challenge for 2018. And I will talk about that more when I complete it. I'm about 75% done with the audio. I will say it's much different than her other books that I've read. It's much more satirical. It's definitely taken the mickey out of sort of sensational novels from the time. So I'm enjoying that. I'm also currently reading The Reckoning by John Grisham. I became aware of this book because I haven't read John Grisham since I was in college, so I don't really follow when he has a new book coming out. But my uncle recently texted me and said, "Have you read The Reckoning by John Grisham? I think you'd really like it. It's a really excellent book." So it was in my mind, and then both Doris and Jacqueline were talking about it, and I went to the library. It happened to be on the new bookshelf. I grabbed it, told Doris I grabbed it, and found myself in a buddy read with Jacqueline and Doris of this book. I am about 100 pages into it. It is a really plot-driven, fun story. It's really sucked me in. It's a story of a man named Pete, who is a World War II veteran. He is just home from the war, and for about a year maybe he's been home from the war, and he one day gets up and goes to the local church and murders the preacher and basically turns himself in and refuses to say why he did it. And so now we're finding out some of the backstory about Pete's family, his 2 children, his sister, his wife, and lots of the backstory of the minister. And it's just a very good plot-driven sort of read, and it's excellent for this time of year when you maybe are looking for something a little bit more light and easy to read. From my nonfiction TBR, I am still working on Not That Bad: Dispatches from Rape Culture edited by Roxane Gay. I am 225 pages into this essay collection. It is, as you can imagine, a very powerful and difficult read, all about how women experience sexual assault and just sexism in all aspects. And it's very, very good. Each and every essay has been very, very good, but it's really, I can't read a lot, so I read 1 or 2 at a time and then put it down and sort of space it out. And I think that's a good way to consume a book like that. Also reading Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption by Bryan Stevenson. This is an older nonfiction about Bryan Stevenson's work in trying to bring justice to those on death row. So it talks about how the racism and whatnot in our criminal justice system currently in America, and it is very also difficult to read because the main case that's being discussed here, there's one case that's sort of the case study, and then we see sort of a lot of other smaller examples of what Stevenson is talking about. But the main story here is about Walter McMillan, who was falsely accused of murdering a white woman who he had a sexual relationship with. And this takes place in Mississippi. And you can imagine what happens to this man, how he gets railroaded into his arrest and then put on death row before he even goes to trial, which is illegal. And it's just amazing what is done to people with impunity, without anybody ever being held accountable for not following the rules. It's really distressing. And there's a whole section that I just read. I'm about 190 pages into this one, And it's really distressing to read about not only cases like Walter McMillan's, who is an adult, but cases of young people, 13, 14 years old, who get in trouble and find themselves on death row, or find themselves in prison for life for stuff that they did when they were children, tried as adults. Some of these children put in solitary confinement from a time, 13, 14 years old for 18, 20 years. I mean, it's just horrible and distressing. And so again, I have to read a little bit, put it down, read something else. But it is definitely worthwhile. It's very engagingly written. It's an excellent a piece of narrative nonfiction. So I definitely recommend it. It's just one of those things that, you have to go slowly with. And I am still continuing on with my biography of Grant. I am on page 218. It is going to take me a long time. I knew I wouldn't finish that in the month of November, but I wanted to get to work on it because it is the presidential biography that I'm currently on, and it's really, really good. Ron Chernow is an excellent author of biographies. He is very detailed, but he writes it in a way that makes you interested in those details as well. Grant is a fascinating figure. He is highly flawed, but also brilliant when it comes to military matters, but not so brilliant when it comes to political matters. So it's really interesting to read about him because he's so, in our culture, in American culture, he's held up as a hero of American history. So it's interesting to read about his flaws. Also, because of Doris, I picked up at the library this essay collection, No Time to Spare by Ursula K. Le Guin. After I saw Doris talking about this on one of her videos, and she showed one of the essays that I just had to immediately read. So when I was in the library, I saw this on the shelf. I had to grab it. I've only read the one essay so far. This is kind of a short little essay collection, but I'm looking forward to getting more into this particular collection. I think it's going to be something I really enjoy. I've read a few Ursula Le Guin books in the past, and I think she's a great writer. So looking forward to getting more into that one. And then one book from my Nonfiction November TBR that I did not get to in November, but I'm still planning to read, hopefully in this month, is Moonwalking with Einstein, The Art and Science of Remembering Everything by Joshua Foer. Lots of folks on BookTube have recommended this, and it is about memory competitions and the author participating in that segment of our culture. I am very interested in reading this book, so I'm hoping that I can get to it in the month of December. So that's where I'm at right now with my reads. Like I said, November was awesome. I really enjoyed all the nonfiction that I read. There wasn't a dud in the bunch, which is awesome. And looking forward to just reading, however I want to in the month of December. I hope you've all found some good books to read. I hope you read some nonfiction in the month of November. And I hope you're ready for the craziness that is the holiday season. I will talk to you later.